after the failure of Snow White due to Disney CEO Bob Iger and Rachel Zegler involves more to do with how Bob Iger was recently punished in the most unexpected way possible after the box office nightmare for Disney.
What they really mean is they're describing a worldview that hates you.
Welcome back to Pop Flash. The drama surrounding Disney has just reached a whole new level. And trust me, you're not going to want to miss this. It's been nothing short of chaotic ever since the disastrous failure of the Snow White remake. According to rumors, this movie bombed so hard that it led to the shocking firing of CEO Bob Iger, and now there's an all-out war raging behind the scenes. But that's not all. Things got seriously ugly when lead actress Rachel Zegler found herself in the middle of the storm. Brace yourselves, because this story is packed with jaw-dropping twists. So, let's start at the beginning.
There are empty theaters all around the country. We are now at a 1 out of 10 on IMDb for the new Snow White, and couldn't happen to a better person.
Yeah, we had more dwarfs than we did viewers in most of these theaters. And as you know, there were no dwarfs other than some CGI weird generated version of them.
She's now bragging about the success of Snow White, which is a movie that's going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars, and mainly because of her, and because nobody wanted to support her.
The reason we had Rachel Zegler on the docket is she's an asshole.
Disney's big idea behind the Snow White remake was to reimagine the beloved classic and bring it into the modern age. Fans were excited, hoping for a magical, fresh take on an iconic fairy tale. They envisioned a visually stunning movie, a story with a bit of a modern twist, something that would tug at the heartstrings of longtime fans and attract new ones. The idea sounded promising, right? It seemed like Disney had all the pieces to make it a box office hit.
I don't really care about that. What I care about is how she hated the story because it needed to be wokeified, and she hated the fact that there was going to be a Prince Charming of some sort, and they needed to update it.
But here's where things went horribly wrong. Instead of delivering a magical experience, the Snow White remake became one of the biggest disasters in recent movie history. According to reports, the film could end up losing a whopping $115 million. Yes, you read that right. $115 million down the drain. How did it all go so wrong? First off, the reviews were scathing. Critics tore apart everything from the storyline to the overall tone of the film. Some called it a bland, lifeless retelling that completely missed the mark. The charm and magic that made the original Snow White so iconic were nowhere to be found.
Very few people wanted to see this. Even the little kids who like Disney movies, even they don't seem to be turning up in droves for the movie because the movie is really, really bad.
Instead, fans and critics were left disappointed and confused. The casting choices didn't help either, with many questioning Disney's decision to cast Rachel Zegler as the lead. And it wasn't just the critics that were upset. Fans, too, were voicing their frustrations. The film's failure was all over social media, with hashtags like Snow White fail trending for days. The backlash was fierce. People weren't just disappointed, they were furious. They felt like Disney had ruined one of their childhood favorites, and they weren't about to let them forget it. There were also reports that some fans felt the film was pandering to a certain agenda, which sparked even more heated debates online. But here's where things take a really dark turn. Despite the negative reviews, Disney pushed forward with a massive marketing campaign, hoping to salvage whatever they could. Unfortunately, the numbers told a different story. The box office performance was downright dismal. The film earned only $14 million in its second weekend, which was a far cry from its hefty $270 million budget. That's right, just $14 million in its second weekend. Disney had clearly hoped for a massive opening, but instead, they were left scrambling to figure out what went wrong.
A company like Disney so up against it. Why? Because it doubled down on DEI, and I think Snow White has become the pinnacle of this. This is going to go down in history as an asterisk next to Rachel Zegler's name, Rachel Zegler.
Now let's talk about the consequences of this catastrophic flop. According to rumors, Bob Iger's position at the top of Disney was on the line. The failure of the Snow White remake, combined with the massive financial losses, had Disney's board of directors in a full-blown panic. There were talks of Bob Iger's departure, with insiders hinting that the Disney CEO was being held responsible for the disaster. Iger, who had once been hailed as a hero for reviving Disney, was now under fire for his leadership decisions. It was clear that something needed to change, and fast. But the drama didn't stop there. Rachel Zegler, the actress who was supposed to carry the film, found herself at the center of a media firestorm. Rumors say that she was blindsided by the overwhelming backlash and felt the pressure of being the face of this disaster. Some sources even claim that she had a massive meltdown behind the scenes, and there were reports of heated arguments between Zegler and Disney executives about the direction of the film. The actress had been hoping for her big break with Snow White, but instead, she became the target of an angry public and a struggling studio. It's worth noting that Zegler had already faced criticism before the film's release. She had made headlines for some controversial comments, which, according to insiders, only fueled the backlash once the film hit theaters. The negative press surrounding her didn't help matters at all, and it seems like things only got worse as the film's performance continued to nosedive. And let's not forget about the creative struggles that plagued the production. According to industry insiders, the film's director and producers were at odds for months over the film's direction. Disney was torn between trying to appeal to a younger, more diverse audience while also staying true to the traditional elements of the original. The result? A film that felt disjointed and lacked the magic that made the original Snow White so memorable. But the messiness didn't stop there. Rumors say that Disney tried to salvage the situation by making last-minute changes to the film, but it was too little, too late. The damage had already been done, and no amount of last-minute tweaks could fix the public's perception of the film. Disney, known for its once unshakable brand, was now facing a major crisis. The fallout from the Snow White remake was threatening to tarnish the studio's reputation for good. So, what now? Well, Disney is scrambling to recover from this massive PR disaster. There are reports that the studio is rethinking its entire approach to live-action remakes, with some insiders suggesting that Disney might scale back its reliance on these types of films in the future. There are also rumors that they're planning to make major changes to their creative team in an effort to turn things around. Whether or not these moves will be enough to save Disney's reputation remains to be seen. But one thing is clear. The fallout from Snow White has shaken the very foundation of the Mouse House. At the heart of this entire debacle is none other than Rachel Zegler, the actress chosen to play Snow White in Disney's controversial remake. From the moment she stepped into the spotlight, her interviews became absolute lightning rods for controversy. Zegler's words and actions quickly ignited a firestorm, turning her into one of the most talked about figures in Hollywood for all the wrong reasons. But just how did we get here? Well, it all started with her bold, unapologetic criticism of the original 1937 film. In interviews leading up to the film's release, Zegler didn't mince words when it came to the 1937 classic. She went on record calling the original outdated and openly expressed disdain for the beloved Prince Charming narrative. She said, "It's no longer 1937," in what seemed to be a clear attempt to modernize the Snow White story. But that's where things really started to spiral. Fans who had cherished the original film for decades were absolutely livid. For many, the 1937 version wasn't just a movie, it was a timeless classic, a piece of history that had defined generations. To hear Zegler dismiss it so easily felt like a slap in the face to longtime fans who held that film near and dear to their hearts. It wasn't just the casual fans who were upset either. A wave of backlash hit Zegler from all directions, with critics calling her out for being disrespectful to the legacy of Snow White. Social media lit up with angry posts, memes, and messages of disappointment. The very people Disney was hoping to win over with this remake were now turning against the film, all because of Zegler's comments. It seemed like no matter how much the studio tried to play damage control, Zegler's words had already ignited a wildfire of fury. But the controversy didn't stop with just the Snow White remarks. Zegler's political activism soon became another powder keg. Her outspoken views on a range of political issues, including her vocal pro-Palestinian stance, only added fuel to the fire. The actress wasn't shy about sharing her opinions on social media, which led to even more division among audiences. For some, she became a voice of change, but for others, her politics were too much to bear. Fans who just wanted to enjoy a fun Disney movie were suddenly forced to confront a side of Zegler they weren't prepared for. This led to even more heated debates online, with the Twitterverse becoming a battleground over her views. The result? Disney's once loyal fan base was more divided than ever before. Those who were rooting for Zegler's take on Snow White found themselves at odds with the traditional Disney lovers who had grown up on the classic tales. It was clear that Zegler's political views, coupled with her comments about the original Snow White, had alienated large chunks of the very audience Disney was trying to attract. And as the backlash continued to build, Disney was left scrambling to salvage the situation. In a desperate attempt to calm the storm, Disney tried to steer the narrative by setting up a high-profile appearance for Zegler on the popular talk show, The View. According to rumors, Disney executives went into full crisis mode, arranging the segment to be heavily scripted in an effort to control the narrative and diffuse some of the growing tension. It seemed like a strategic move to clean up the mess. But guess what? Zegler didn't exactly follow the script. Instead of sticking to the talking points provided by the studio, she veered off course, leading to an off-the-rails interview that ended up being a PR nightmare. The segment quickly spiraled out of control, with Zegler's unscripted responses creating even more controversy. It wasn't long before the interview was abruptly pulled from the air mid-recording. That's right, mid-recording. The very attempt to manage the situation ended up making things even worse. The chaotic interview only added fuel to the already raging fire. And now, it wasn't just the movie that was under scrutiny, it was the entire PR strategy behind it. The fallout from that interview was swift and severe. Fans and critics alike were shocked by how badly the situation had escalated. It was clear that Disney's attempt to control the narrative had backfired spectacularly. The PR team that thought they could smooth things over with a simple TV appearance had instead unleashed an even bigger crisis. The more Zegler tried to clean up her image, the worse it seemed to get. Every move she made seemed to stir up more controversy, leaving Disney struggling to keep up with the chaos. Now, the question on everyone's mind is, how did it all go so wrong? How did a movie that was supposed to bring back the magic of a Disney classic end up turning into a disaster of epic proportions? Was it the casting, the script, or was it Zegler's own outspoken nature that ignited the firestorm? One thing's for sure, Disney has a lot of damage control ahead of them, and it doesn't look like it's going to be an easy fix. Amidst all the chaos surrounding Disney's Snow White remake, one key player managed to remain eerily quiet: Gal Gadot, the actress who portrayed the evil queen. While Rachel Zegler was out there making waves with her controversial comments, Gadot chose a much more reserved approach. And that silence? Oh, it didn't go unnoticed. In fact, it became a major talking point in Hollywood circles. Was her restraint a sign of professionalism, or did it come off as a lack of support for her co-star and the project as a whole? Gadot's decision to stay mum in the middle of a PR disaster sparked intense debates, with some arguing that her silence helped maintain her own dignity amidst the turmoil. After all, why wade into the mess when you don't have to? But others couldn't help but wonder, was this a calculated move to avoid getting caught up in the controversy? Had Gadot distanced herself from the wreckage of Snow White in a bid to protect her career? Or was she simply playing it safe, knowing that silence was the best way to avoid further complicating the situation? Hollywood is a place where the public often looks for heroes, especially in times of crisis. And in this case, many felt that Zegler's vocal, unapologetic stance had drawn too much attention to the film's flaws. Gadot, on the other hand, had taken the opposite route by staying out of the drama, leaving fans to question whether this was a sign of professionalism or, as some suggested, a lack of solidarity with her co-star. One thing is clear: this contrast in approaches was a hot topic among industry insiders. As Zegler faced backlash after backlash, Gadot's silence stood in stark contrast, and it quickly became a point of intrigue among Hollywood circles. Behind closed doors, however, the real drama was unfolding. Disney's leadership found themselves under intense scrutiny as the Snow White disaster continued to unravel. Once regarded as a visionary leader, Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, was suddenly thrust into the firing line. According to multiple insiders, Disney's board of directors was deeply divided over how to handle the aftermath of the film's failure. There were those who called for Iger's resignation, blaming his leadership for the catastrophic flop. Others believed that the company needed a complete overhaul, perhaps even a new direction entirely. Insiders claimed that the board was split between those advocating for drastic changes and those who believed that Iger's leadership was still essential to the company's future. The film's failure, along with the growing controversies surrounding the remake, had exposed cracks in Disney's approach to modern storytelling and audience engagement. Disney, a company once known for its ability to capture the hearts of audiences worldwide, was now being criticized for losing touch with its core fans. As one insider put it, the failure of Snow White isn't just a box office disaster, it's a wake-up call for the entire company, and they weren't wrong. The public's reaction to the film's mishandling showed just how deeply Disney had miscalculated its audience's desires. Fans wanted the magic, the nostalgia, the timeless stories that had defined Disney for generations. But instead, They got a remake that seemed more interested in pushing an agenda than delivering a beloved fairy tale. Amidst all this turmoil, the tension within Disney's leadership reached a boiling point. Some believed that the company needed a complete shift in its creative direction, one that would get back to the basics of what made Disney great. Others, however, argued that the company was still on the right track, despite the setbacks. But the divide was real, and it only served to add more uncertainty to an already chaotic situation. While all of this was happening, a new wave of rumors began to emerge about Rachel Zegler herself. According to industry insiders, Zegler was reportedly considering publicly criticizing Disney for not defending her more fiercely against the backlash. The actress had faced a barrage of negative attention ever since the film's release, and many insiders believe that she was growing frustrated with the lack of support from the studio. If Zegler were to take her grievances public, it could have been the final nail in the coffin for Disney's already crumbling reputation. Zegler's frustration with the lack of support was no secret, and insiders claimed that the actress felt completely abandoned by Disney in the wake of the backlash. After all, she had become the face of the controversy, yet the studio seemed more focused on damage control than standing by its star. If she had gone public with her criticism, it would have further amplified the tension between the actress and Disney, making it clear that there was a deep rift between talent and management. And let's not forget the pressure Zegler was under. She had signed on to play Snow White in what was supposed to be a groundbreaking remake. Instead, she was left to pick up the pieces of a disastrous production. Publicly attacking Disney might have felt like a last-ditch effort to reclaim some sense of control, to take a stand against the studio that seemed to have thrown her under the bus. At the same time, such a move would have undoubtedly sent shockwaves through the industry. Hollywood is notorious for its complicated relationships between talent and studios, and any open confrontation could have led to disastrous consequences. Zegler's career, already tarnished by the backlash, could have been left in ruins. Yet in the heat of the moment, the idea of speaking out was undoubtedly tempting for the actress. Disney, for its part, was walking a tightrope. On one hand, the studio needed to maintain its public image and salvage whatever goodwill it could. On the other, it couldn't afford to lose more of its talent over a failed project. The stakes were high, and every move the studio made seemed to make things worse. If Zegler had gone public with her frustrations, it would have only highlighted the widening gap between the creative team and the executives. A rift like that could have crippled the studio's ability to move forward with future projects. In the end, Zegler chose not to go public with her complaints, at least not yet. But the fact that such rumors were even circulating shows just how dire the situation was for Disney. The entire production had been plagued with controversies, from the casting to the film's tone, and now it seemed like the talent itself was at odds with the company. It's safe to say that Snow White will go down in Disney history as one of the most disastrous remakes ever, not just because of the film's catastrophic box office performance, but because of the way it exposed deeper fractures within the company. The controversy surrounding Rachel Zegler, Bob Iger, and the film's failure has laid bare the struggles Disney faces in adapting to a changing world. As the studio tries to pick up the pieces, it's clear that this crisis will have lasting consequences for the future of the company. In a move that shocked Hollywood, Disney's board made the bold, unprecedented decision to part ways with Bob Iger. The decision wasn't just about one man. It was a clear signal that Disney recognized it was time for fresh leadership to steer the ship through the turbulent waters of modern entertainment. And let's be clear, the catastrophic failure of the Snow White remake was the straw that broke the camel's back. It highlighted just how far the company had strayed from its roots, and now Disney was forced to confront its future in a rapidly changing industry. This wasn't just a shakeup, it was a full-on revolution in leadership. The Snow White debacle wasn't just a box office flop, it was the wake-up call Disney desperately needed. The failure of this project underscored the immense challenges Disney faces in balancing the allure of innovation with the heavy weight of its storied legacy. How do you respect the past while simultaneously pushing boundaries? It's a tightrope walk that Disney, for all its legacy, seemed to be fumbling. But that wasn't the only fallout from this disaster. In a move that signaled a massive shift in strategy, Disney reportedly hit the pause button on other live-action remakes, including the highly anticipated Tangled reimagining. That's right, Disney, the studio synonymous with remaking its classic animated films, was finally taking a step back. Could this be the first sign of a seismic shift in the studio's creative direction? Sources say the company is reevaluating its reliance on remaking old favorites and considering the development of original content that resonates with today's audiences. This isn't just a business decision, It's a statement about the future of storytelling. It's clear that Disney is at a crossroads, and the old formula isn't working anymore. With this strategic shift, the studio may be setting the stage for a bold new era of creativity, one that doesn't rely on nostalgia, but instead embraces fresh, original stories that connect with a new generation of viewers. The Snow White disaster is more than just a failure. It's a cautionary tale for the entire entertainment industry. It highlights the perils of misaligned creative decisions, where pushing an agenda or trying to make a statement can backfire spectacularly. Hollywood has long been obsessed with reinvention and reimagination, but what's often forgotten is the need to stay connected with the core desires of the audience. The Snow White flop reminds us all that no matter how much you try to update or modernize, you must first understand and respect what made the original beloved. And let's not forget about public relations. The PR mishandling of this project was almost as disastrous as the film itself. From the disastrous interviews to the handling of Zegler's comments, Disney's lack of a cohesive strategy only made things worse. It's a crucial lesson for every studio. Navigating the modern entertainment landscape requires more than just a good script and flashy visuals. It demands a clear, consistent, and thoughtful approach to public relations. Now, as Disney embarks on a period of deep introspection and restructuring, the industry is watching with bated breath. How will the entertainment giant pick up the pieces and move forward? Will it be able to redefine its brand in the face of such a colossal failure? One thing is for sure, the world is watching to see if Disney can reclaim its position as the leader in global storytelling, or if the Snow White disaster will go down in history as the moment Disney lost its magic.